Attending this presentation, you are open to the truth as it can be known, following in new actions and ideas, making for a better way of life. James Coleman, Inner Peace Arts Unscripted. Today's topic is live for what you live for. So it's meant to be encouraging and encouragement so that you will, start to live for what you live for. First thing I want to mention is that the statement is one of those kind of Yogi Berra kind of statements that's an identity statement. It kind of like defines itself within itself. You know, it's like live for what you live for. And it's a play on words, but it is something that requires great courage. It's something that requires great insight because we live in an age where control of stuff and control of feelings is driven from the top down, and there's not training at the bottom for how to actually live for what you live for. And of course, that's my aim, is to start to develop those training materials and disseminate them. I mean, you notice that it's starting to, as we go through these Inner Peace Arts episodes, something is growing. And that something that's growing, I think, is really leading to materials, organized materials, much like, any kind of famous publisher you could think of, or a textbook publisher, materials like that for agency. And I think once those get out, it will be much more difficult for a ruling class to suppress, or they will have to find another way to get around. But I think if everyone starts to have a notion of this freedom of living for what they live for and understand what that means, and people decide not to be taken advantage of and en masse, I don't want to say, rebel, then you have a different kind of a world. And I think it will be a better world. Certainly one that's reflective of the freedom that each of us desires to have, and the freedom to explore what that will look like for each of us. To live for what you live for can mean, and I think especially in our current age, not accepting what's given to you, or accepting what's you're told to do. Instead, to learn how to live for what you live for, you're given pieces. And you say, here are some puzzle pieces, start to play with them. And you get the puzzle pieces when you're young. One of those puzzle pieces that I'm realizing is now important is beginnings, middles, and ends, and deciding when something is done. How do you know when something is done? That's a very kind of a spiritual question in some ways, especially when it comes to any kind of work of art. If your life is a piece of work of art, then, when are you done? When is any action done? So if we have, like, typically my episodes here are around 10 minutes, so I'd better be done in the 8 to 11 minute time frame, right? But is it finished? Well, I don't know whether it's finished, but I know that I'm done, right? So these are the kinds of things to learn as a little kid. Some people are better at it than others. Some people can come to that place where you create this sense of completion easier than others. And I think the ones that don't get to the sense of completion as easily are just flat out kind of acceptor explorers, not really wondering why so much, but just accepting and going on. We can get into personality stuff later, but this is supposed to be encouraging and about you living for what you live for. And again, I say it takes courage, it takes insight on who you are, what do you want, and what you're willing to do to go about getting it. And again, about your definitions of people, the world, how to interact with them, and it should be exciting. But live for what you live for. I mean, if you did that, you would wake up every day very excited about what the world is going to bring to you, what the stream is going to bring to you that day. I had a conversation with someone who was growing up, and they said that it seems as though life as an adult is dreary. And I was like, wow, you're seeing that at this age. And I had to make the clarification to this person that one, it was a good insight, and two, that if you learn how to make it exciting now, it can continue to be exciting. But in order to do so, you have to learn about the constraints that are put on you, the constraints that are part of being, right? There's a constraint in this body that keeps it together. If those constraints aren't in place, well, maybe I become, just liquid, right? Or I just become constituent elements that are just laying on the ground, right? So there are things that are constraints that are binding this body to be able to interact with the environment in a certain way. The environment itself has constrictions and constraints on it, right? So it's learning what these constraints are and using them to live the life or live for what you want to live for. That's one of the big insights that's necessary in order to do it. The constraints, I mean, you can call them your friend, you can call them your enemy, it doesn't matter. You have to deal with them. And having the attitude, a positive attitude on how to deal with them, and learning how to create a habit of success by using them is key to living for what you live for. Now think about that. I mean, where is that taught in school, our educational system? And if it is, how is it reinforced, right? I met one person who's currently, and I was talking about how economics is not really taught, and they were like, oh, I had an economics class in high school. I was like, wow, okay, how did it impact you? And she was like, well, it really didn't. And I was like, wow. And then I was like, well, did you remember the basic questions of economics? She's like, no. Well, see, and that's how it happens, right? They will say, okay, we gave you an opportunity to use the information, but you didn't use it. And I would say that the information that you really give is the information that's repeated, because we know that people need routine, people learn by repetition, and that because of the openness of being human, the various situations that we can adapt to, repetition is key to making something settle in. And my argument is that the basic questions of economics should be taught in like second grade. What's produced, how it's produced, and who gets to benefit from what's produced. Yeah, have 10 million children learning that, and you're going to have a very, very, very different perspective on stuff and feelings and how people are being treated. And listen, some people are going to be happy as I just want to go to work and that's all I want to do. Listen, that's there's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I am not coming against, manual labor, repetitive labor, or whatever. That's your thing, right? What I'm saying is not to force those for whom it is not natural, not part of who they are, what they want to be, how they see the world, right? To do so. And you'll have people who are doing those jobs who are happy. Nothing wrong with that. So that's my encouraging talk for the day. Live for what you live for. Have the courage to do so. Have the insight on what really drives you. Find out what it is. Hang out with people that are talking about it. Hang out with people that are living for what they live for. And have it rub off on you in some way. And just keep looking, exploring, and letting go, and doing all sorts of other things, listening to the videos, etc. And that's what I wanted to share today. Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'asem lecha shalom. In distinction, thanks be to stream, in stream, by stream.